decisions, process, policies that are required to move an institution forward.
Very good, thank you. There were a number of questions submitted related to the budget. As you can well imagine, that's on everyone's mind. One of those was, I assume that your current campus has experienced financial difficulties in the last year or two. Can you describe the process that you have used at your institution to plan for and deal with a decreasing budget?
And absolutely, there is not a sector of education that's not been challenged by the economy and endowment losses and the market forces. But most importantly, within the independent sector, it is a bottom line student's ability to pay. We have a product that is being delivered to a student body that probably has a sociodemographic profile very similar to yours here in Warrensburg. And to have a $30,000 tuition and board and fees cost, especially if there's job loss within a family or any other economic interventions with students. And a lot of times today, parents aren't sharing all that information with their students. They don't want to share the stress of what the human toll is on a family. We've really taken 3 specific steps. One is to amplify our mission, because our mission within the independent sector is what creates the value proposition. So you really have to be very clear and distinctive. Oh, when it goes on, it'll thank you. I'm an iPhone. Ooh. It was an iPhone. The first step we've asked consideration from our Board of Trustees is to be relentless in our mission implementation. So that mission is really meant not to receive a lot of commendations for who we are and what we do. It's meant to generate more resources. It has to convert. That piece of paper that's a vision statement and mission has to convert to students, fundraising dollars, revenue. The second is our business model within the private sector has got to change. And when I say that, and we had a good conversation with the deans and vice presidents, running central-like a business is not the objective, but to create efficiencies and effectiveness measures that free up resources to be allocated to the strategic priorities of the institution is the objective. Now that may be more business-like than higher education has been accustomed to in the last 40 years, but it really is about effective resource allocation to strategic priorities. And that's one reason those strategic priorities for the next 25 years need to be clearly delineated. In re-engineering our delivery, cost is a major factor. We tried to hold down our tuition increases as low as we possibly can. And I know that's going to be an issue looking ahead for the state of Missouri. And is that balance between low tuition and the state's responsibility for appropriations, especially for need-based students, and especially for students in underserved populations, because they're disproportionately affected within this economy. That really has 3 different levels. One is creating a greater sense of institutional efficiencies. And we're not as efficient as we should be. All of higher education is not as efficient as it could be. And this gives us a chance to ask the questions of how do we create those that preserves the academic core of the institution. But the second, perhaps most important question is, are we being as effective with those resources as we absolutely can? We talked some this morning about balance, just about load. Have we appropriately got balance across students and majors and course credit hour productions that make certain that we've got some equilibrium, that we don't have one department or one school here and another, just so that there's an equilibrium created. But in the other aspect is, are there majors and are there programs that are not serving the needs of our students? And so ultimately that effectiveness has to make perhaps some questions that we can't do everything that we've always done. Now, that's a longer term question. It needs community-wide engagement and consensus about the future of the institutions and the programs you offer. But it is going to be a certain outcome of this economic storm that's passing, because I think the shape and the size of higher education is going to change. We have an 18-year-old high school senior who's been in the college search process. I've looked at this a little differently as a parent than I have as an administrator. I thought I knew what kids were thinking until you start thinking about your own kids. But I will tell you, and I'm sure you're having a sense here, there's a real sense of utility and purpose and value in the community colleges today. A very strong change in the relevance that they're presenting. So partnerships, and that's the third piece, creating a sense of mission focus, to having a real sense of efficiency, effectiveness measures in place, and the third is driving a relentless sense of partnerships. One quick example is in the health sciences. We just started a new nursing program. We couldn't have done it without the help of our local community college, who was providing clinical laboratory support. But in this new partnership, we've already formulated a vision for a new allied health college on our campus that will be a joint venture between our community college and a private independent college with a whole different pricing structure, access point, shared resources that can meet the needs of the community, but also have a financial structure that's accessible and affordable for students. So that new sense of opportunity and partnering is required to today. I always want you to ask me another like we're in conversation. Yeah.
Next year, Central may be facing a significant reduction in support from the state. Everyone on campus is concerned about how well this will impact students' positions and working conditions. We do not expect you to have detailed understanding of our budget or budgeting processes, salary structure, and the like. So the question pertains more to your philosophy and priorities than to specifics. But as an example, last week's issue of Muleskinner quoted a Board of Governors member as saying that perhaps faculty promotions will not involve raises in the future. And that should be prefaced by the fact that that was in the context of a 20 to 30% cut in the university budget. It wasn't just a casual conversation. So given that information, on a continuum from this is a no-brainer and should have been instituted last year to this should only be considered if it is the last action necessary to prevent the apocalypse, what is your position on this action about balancing Central's budget, and if it differs with the Board of Governors, how do you relate to them in that context?
Yeah, apocalypse is not good. That's, I know that. It's very serious because there is certain human toll when you make decisions based on perhaps contingency planning that could be dramatic. There's not anyone making decisions about budgeting and the allocation of resources that don't realize that if it affects someone's salary or wage or employment, that's a very real consideration. And I think the continuum planning in terms of both planning and assessment and resource allocation, you really start with the inputs to generate as much revenue as you possibly can. And that's obviously affected by that state appropriation. And I know you've got some limits on what tuition can be for Missouri residents, but to really maximize as much as possible the revenue first. And then you move the expenditure side to really take a hard look at what you're spending, and can you slow those spending down? Is there means by which you can limit things that do not disrupt the student experience, the academic core objectives? And then, of course, then you move on in the continuum of, are there things like, and I'm sure you've already considered and have done some of these things, maintaining lap salaries, leaving positions that are not essential vacant, perhaps delaying a hiring for 60 days just to create savings, the types of efficiencies that you would work for just as aggressively as you could so that they're not disrupting, one, the teaching and learning environment, that don't have a direct impact on individuals. Eliminating, and I know you've looked at course schedules and course registrations, and probably had more students in your classes. And of course, again, down that continuum. We have states in our region that have moved well beyond that level of creating savings. The state of North Carolina